Did Republican strategist Karl Rove say Hillary Clinton may have brain damage?
So during a conference last week, Karl Rove said voters need to know the truth about Mrs. Clinton's health if she decides to run for president. The New York Post is reporting that Rove was talking about Clinton's treatment after she suffered a fall and a concussion in December of 2012. The Post reports that Rove said 30 days in the hospital, and when she reappears, she's wearing glasses that are only for people who have traumatic brain injury. We need to know what's up with that.
Quick fact check here for you. Hillary Clinton spent 3 days in the hospital, not 30. She did wear glasses with special lenses for a short time after she had that concussion. A spokesman said they helped her temporary vision problems. And a couple of hours ago, Rove seemed to walk it back a bit, saying he never used the words brain damage and he was just asking overall questions about Clinton's health.
I never use that. I never use that phrase. I never use that phrase. But look, she had a serious episode, a serious health episode. And I don't know about you, but if you go through a serious health episode, it causes you to look at life a little bit differently. And I mean, this was a serious deal. I mean, she basically is out of action she's in and out of the office for starting on the 7th of December after she returns. She returns on a Friday from the Czech Republic, but then it begins over a month-long period where she's got a serious illness, ending up putting her in the hospital. We don't know what the doctor said about, what does she have to be concerned about. We don't know about I mean, she's hidden a lot of it.
All right, that hardly seems to qualify as walking things back. So let's talk about this with Lanny Davis. He's a lawyer, crisis manager, former White House special counsel for President Bill Clinton. Also with us, our senior political correspondent, Brianna Keeler, who covers all things Hillary Clinton for us. And Brianna, let me just ask right off the bat here, what does the Clinton team, I can't call it the Clinton campaign, but what does the Clinton team say about all this right now?
They're knocking Karl Rove very hard on this, I would say, from a spokesperson for Hillary Clinton. He says Karl Rove has deceived the country for years, but there are no words for this level of lying as to her health. She is 100%, period. And I've heard that from many people in her camp, that while this was a serious episode at the time of concern, that at this moment her health is very good.
Lanny, somewhat of backtrack, but not really. He stuck by some of his original comments, but the question is, did he go too far with his original comments, or is it fair to bring up health concerns?
Well, first of all, he didn't step it back. If anything, he made it worse by not apologizing for something that is so uncharacteristic. Karl Rove's a tough political warrior, and full disclosure, I went to college with his boss, President Bush, and I've had a friendship with Karl Rove, including when he was in criminal difficulty, almost indicted. I defended him, that he wasn't guilty until proven to be so. But what he's done is shameful. Using innuendo when we see by conduct what the truth is. 3 months after her hospitalization, she was at my book party. She has never looked so good, and I went to law school with her when her last name was Rodham. She's traveling all over, and she just finished a book. Doesn't sound like an injured person to me. But for Karl to say something without a shred of evidence, the pure innuendo of it belongs on page 6 journalism, not Karl Rove. Even as a tough political warrior, he's never stooped so low, and I'll bet you that he's going to regret doing this, because it doesn't sound right coming from Karl Rove to be this low and this sleazy. He's tough, but he's not sleazy. This was sleazy.
Well, he's tough. He's also careful, Lanny. I've covered Karl for a long time. You call this page 6 journalism, and to be clear, it is in fact page 6 journalism. That's where this report first appeared in the New York Post. And, Karl knows what he's saying here. The phrase traumatic brain injury set off this firestorm. We're covering it now. As you well know, health is an issue that comes up in campaigns. Age is an issue that comes up in campaigns. People from the Clinton team in 1996 talked about Bob Dole. They said, oh, no, we're not concerned about his age. It's the age of his ideas, which is another way of saying he's old. But the question again, what Rove here seems to be qualitatively different than that.
Well, first of all, ideas are okay to attack, but age isn't. Ronald Reagan made use of that very effectively against Walter Mondale when he said he was concerned about Mondale's inexperience, and he was a lot older than Hillary Clinton will be if she runs for president. But look, there are certain boundaries that all politicians believe in. No matter how dirty and rotten politics is, there are certain boundaries. Everybody knows that Karl Rove crossed the boundary, and knowing Rove as I do, as I said, he's a tough political warrior, but he's not a sleazebag. This is sleazy for him to raise the question. He might as well say, there might be Martians under Hillary Clinton's bed. She needs to address that. So this is sleazy, raising an innuendo without a fact, but I can tell you factually, she's healthy, she's vigorous, she's finished her book, she's traveling all over. What your eyes see is what is exactly the truth.
Brianna, it's interesting. Go ahead, Brianna. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do think this kind of is, I think a lot of Republicans who are maybe looking to compete against Hillary Clinton wouldn't like to see how this was done in this way, because in any campaign, I think that health can be fair game.
Sure.
And it's a way for maybe some opponents to kind of get at the age issue. I mean, she is, if you're looking at this purely through the political lens, she would, if she decides to run, she will be older than many of her Republican opponents, and that's something certainly that they're going to look at, raising this ageist argument. But at the same time, it's something politically that opponents would have to be very careful about. In this case, it appears that Rove wasn't, and it kind of taints this argument for Republicans who might want to use it in a different way in the future.
Yeah, using a phrase like traumatic brain injury, if in fact you use it, is ridiculous and absurd and probably helps the Clinton team more than it hurts it, as you said, Brianna. All right, Lanny Davis, stick around because we're going to talk about Donald Sterling some more, his shocking comments about Magic Johnson. Is this just some generational thing? Are we making too much of these statements or not?
Well, what kind of a guy goes to every city, has sex with every girl, then he catches HIV? And is that someone we want to respect and tell our kids about?
How about your whole life? Every day, you could do whatever you want. You could sleep with him, you could bring him in, you could do whatever you want. The little I ask you is not to promote it on that and not to bring him to my games.
I don't bring anyone to the game.
Okay, then. There's nothing to argue about.
I know.
That's another little tidbit there for you of Donald Sterling's audio that stirred up this whole mess. Of course, when Sterling sat down face-to-face with Anderson Cooper, things kind of got worse.
Yeah, Donald Sterling saying those things about Magic Johnson, not at all kind. Here's more from that interview.
Here is a man who's, I don't know if I say this, he acts so holy. I mean, he made love to every girl in every city in America, and he had AIDS. And when he had those AIDS, I went to my synagogue and I prayed for him. I hoped he could live and be well. I didn't criticize him. I could have. Is he an example for children? You know, because he has money, he's able to treat himself. But Magic Johnson is irrelevant in this thing. He didn't do anything harmful to anybody, and I respect him and I admire everything that he does. You know, I'd like to help even more if he would offer me an opportunity to help. I like to help minorities.
All right, let's talk about that. Lanny Davis is a crisis communications expert with Levick. He's back with us. He's also the author of the book Crisis Tales. This qualifies as a crisis. Also joining us is Mo Ivory, a radio talk show host in Atlanta, an all-around insightful individual. Mo, I want to start with you here. You know, there aren't a lot of people jumping up and supporting Donald Sterling right now, but I have heard people say, look, he's just, you know, he's 81 years old. He was clearly in love with V. Stiviano. He's a love-struck octogenarian, or, as I was saying before, a horny old guy saying crazy things.
Sure.
Is that justifiable?
Well, I mean, I do think that there is a part of that that is justifiable, that he is not only those things, but he's also super wealthy, which puts his whole thinking and the way people have catered to him in his life on a different scale. So he's not at all ever used to.
I got to push back on that. Magic Johnson's really wealthy. He's not saying crazy things.
Okay, well, Magic Johnson has done some crazy things in the past.
Fair
so,
enough.
you know, when he was in the midst of all that, and that's the thing that I think people are so outraged by what Donald Sterling is saying, but Donald Sterling is just having private conversations in public. There are a lot of people that have said these very same things. If you were to roll the tape back to when Magic Johnson made his announcement, there were many people that came out against Magic Johnson when he made that announcement about HIV. So he's really referring to things that people have already said, but we're so outraged sort of because of the collective of what he's saying. But if you break down some of the things that he's saying, he's analyzing some very real issues that people have in private conversations in homes all around this country.
But not
that
really
talk
so
freely
private.
that way.
I mean, the conversation with Anderson, he knew
not private.
this was going to be broadcast.
Okay, so I'm saying when I say private, that things that people would normally say in their own homes, that he is sort of with no publicist around, without any sort of management, kind of blurting off these things that he would have in private conversations. There are many people that have had conversations about comparisons between the Jewish community and the black community and the way money is invested and things like that. That could actually have been a conversation on a Meet the Press in the morning, or a racial conversation.
But how Magic Johnson ended up with HIV has absolutely nothing to do with black people showing up with V. Stiviano at Clippers games. That much I think we can all agree on.
Sure, I agree with that, but I think that he was saying that in the context of the entire conversation with Magic Johnson. I have heard people even this morning say, well, why is Magic Johnson even in the conversation? We know why he's in the conversation, because of the picture that he was in with V. Stiviano when he was brought into the conversation very early.
Lanny, we got to bring you in. I think one of the things that many people are, you're the crisis guy. We should come to you with this right off the bat. He showed up. Anderson tells us off camera that he didn't roll up with a whole posse of people. He essentially is going this alone. He's not doing much press. He did agree to sit down, Sterling, agree to sit down with Anderson. It went from bad to worse. Not any of this is probably what you would suggest in Crisis 101, is it?
Well, I've been asked by a lot of people since whenever anything bad happens anywhere, I seem to get expected to be called. And I suppose that's a strange compliment that nobody ever says, hey, Lanny, I have great news. But this guy is beyond help. I would certainly respectfully and strongly disagree with my colleague who just commented that this is normal stuff that can be said privately. Bigotry is not normal, it's aberrational. Racism is not normal, it's aberrational. Unfortunately, it may be more aberrational than we would like. He is a racist. He used racist terminology about blacks. There is no question that he shouldn't be the owner of a professional basketball team. If he were a private individual who's a bigot and he happens to be captured on tape, I could understand the logic of what I just heard. But he's the owner of a professional basketball team, which is a position under contract, which he's not allowed to do what he did, and that's why they can take the franchise away from him, because he violated his contract.
And I am not saying that that conversation is normal conversation. I am saying that people have those conversations. And to act all shocked, like we can't believe this man is speaking this way, these are conversations we've heard a lot. These kind of things, when they become public, what they do is they open up the conversation for us to talk about race more. It doesn't say it's correct. It doesn't say that we agree with what he's saying. But let's not act like it's so shocking what he's saying, because I have heard people speak this way for many years in my life who have been in great positions of authority and of power. So I'm just saying that we need to sit back a little bit, and just because Donald Sterling is saying it on television doesn't say that other people aren't having these same conversations.
The problem is, I think, for the players and the fans and the other owners, they can't unhear what they heard, whether it was public or private. The good thing is there's a lot more opportunity to talk about this in an important way, including tonight when Magic Johnson sits down with Anderson on AC 360. This is an important discussion. I think it's the next logical step here. We need to hear what Magic Johnson has to say about what Donald Sterling said out loud. Mo Ivory, Lanny Davis, great to have you here to talk about this, a serious, important discussion to be having right now.